Hey there guys, so surprisingly this came out kind of fast, but Mark Eater actually put out the patch 10.5 preview with the changes. So usually it takes a while to get to these. I don't know that it's a problem or anything, just sometimes it takes a bit, but they actually took it out already. So let's go, we're gonna do a deep dive through this, so it might be a little bit longer since there's a lot of changes. So he wants to start by saying, we shifted the approach of a few things and added some champs. They are almost final, or these are almost final, a few may change by the time the patch ships. So let's go in there. So we'll go from, I guess, the top to the bottom. Item nerf. So we have Bombi Cinder from 1,000 gold to 1,100. Makes it good. So this way you can't just reliably get it on first back every time for tank jungles, because they're clearly really insane with Bombi Cinder. The Sunfire loses 100 total health. Frostfire Gauntlet's slow effectiveness radius, so the circle is going to be just a tad bit smaller. And the Mystic Path of your size increases reduced by 1.5%, so you're going to be a little bit smaller as well. It's interesting that they decreased the size. I guess being too big was somewhat powerful and valuable. It's kind of funny. And the Turbo Chem Tank slows down by 0.5 seconds. Seeker's Arm Guard is down by 10 AP. Wish it was a little bit of armor as well. The Collector Execute now only works on champions. That's a really good change, honestly. It's a big one because honestly, people are just auto farming really hard with the Collector, and Jhin procs his nade way too well with it. Eclipse range shield value is down from 100 base and 30% bonus AD to 75 and 20% bonus AD. Once again, these are all Jhin nerfs to be honest, mainly at least. But losing 10% bonus AD and a good amount of base is pretty big. Dustblade of Drakthar is slow, will only proc on melee. Mura Mana proc on physical damaging abilities, no longer all abilities, so mages can't be using it. And they buffed quite a bit of items here. So with Gale Force, it went up by 5 AD, and the active CD went from 90 to 60 seconds. That's pretty big. So Gale Force isn't really the best item in the game, but its active does a lot of damage. It's actually really nice, and it's kind of fun to use, honestly. And the fact that it's 60 seconds now is huge, because this item gets affected by haste. So a lot of times when you're buying this item, it's the reality of it, the cooldown's like 50 seconds without really buying much else or trying to build haste. So if you add some haste, it could go down to like about 40. So I could probably see it some more on some builds, because it does do good damage, but overall the item is not as powerful as like something in the shield bow. So Zeal went down from 1,200 gold to 1050, pretty big, really big. Always saving gold, it's nice. Phantom Dancer went down 200 gold. Essence Reaver went up 5 AD. Mortal Reminder went down 200 gold, also really big. Lord Dominic's AD went up by 5. Mercurial Scimitar went up in gold, but went up by 10 AD. So 100 gold for 10 AD, that's way worth it. That's super gold efficient. And the Rapid Fire Cannon went from 2,700 gold to 2,500. And then IE grants 8% crit damage for each 20% crit chance is no more. If you have 60% crit chance now, you gain 35% crit damage. So this way you can build IEs a lot earlier in your build and get that ramp up a lot faster, instead of having to wait till you are 100 crit and then you buy it and it still wouldn't be that big of a spike. So before I go into the rest of these items, since these are all ADC items, I think that's huge. They're buffing a lot of ADC items, and most of these aren't mythics either. Yeah, Gale Forces, but Phantom Dancer, Essence, Mortal, Lord Dominic's, Mercurial Scimitar, Rapid Fire, and IE are not. So I think this is crazy, and with all of them going down relatively 150 to 200 gold, you can see ADC starts curving out and spiking a lot harder, and their spikes being a lot more meaningful, especially for crit based ADCs with the new IE change. But with that, we have to be careful too, because of Yone and Yasuo, especially because they can get 60% crit chance fairly easily. And then the next change is the Band of Glass Mirror. We kind of knew this because this one was on the preview. Reducing the cost from 1050 to 950, which then reduces the cost of all the Band of Glass Mirror support items such as Mandate, Moonstone, Shurelez, and Locket. So they all got relatively the same changes, including the initial procs and heals. You can pause and look at those specifics there. They're very small, so I don't think it'll be anything crazy. Ardent Sensor, Blasting Wand was replaced with an Amplifying Tome, making the total cost unchanged, which I love. I was someone that was complaining a lot on Twitter about how if you back as a support, you have 250 gold for Fairy Charm, which is just 250 gold for a Fairy Charm, or you have 860 for the Blasting Wand, which is a little unreal as a support. Sometimes, yeah, but if you're not ahead, it sucks. Sucks a lot. So I'm glad they changed it to Tome and kept it the same price. I really like that. Then Zeke's convergence went down 50 health, and it went down 5 armor, but the mark duration went from 4 to 8 seconds, and the damage against marked enemies went from 2550 to 3570. Now, I know it says a buff here, but I feel like overall this is a weird change because yeah, you're upping the mark damage and yeah, you're upping the mark duration, but in most cases my ADC is proccing the mark almost instantaneously since we're fighting together, and I don't like the idea of losing my stats just for a bit more damage per proc. I think it's a weird change, and I think Zeke won't really see much out of this. Once again, we have the Ludens and Everfrost change. There was the same during the little preview from a couple days ago, where the ability haste went up by 10 on both these items, and the magic pin went down a little bit on the Ludens as well. Not really big changes there either. And then we go into champion changes, so there's quite a bit here. So Kaale's base magic resist is down by 4. Her E passive on hit AP ratio is down by 5% now. They're probably just keeping her in line and trying to tune her up because of the last nerfs as well, but she's still overperforming. For Kayn, he lost 3 armor. His base damage on his Q went down from 75-155 to 65-145, and the QCD went from 6.4 to 7.5 seconds. So I know a lot of people are upset and don't want to see Kayn nerfed, but these nerfs aren't that huge. They are definitely meaningful, especially waiting for your Q and your Q not doing enough damage. But that's just something they have to give him because he just works so damn well with the new Gore Drinker. It synergizes so well, especially with Gore Drinker's mythic passive being to give other items haste. It's kind of understandable that they want to give his Q one more second just so he doesn't spam it as hard and he has to wait times. For Fizz, his mana per level went down by quite a bit, probably to force him to buy more mana items or a mana item in general. Morgana mid's WDPS went down. I was really shocked when I saw this one. Morgana mid is definitely a good pick and a really safe pick at that, but I didn't see anyone complain about it, so I think this was definitely probably a more high elo pick because I didn't even see the win rate on this, so I'm not exactly sure where this came from. Annie's E movement speed went down. We kind of saw this coming. I mean, I feel like anyone did because Annie's E is really strong. It only went down 10%, so it's definitely still going to see a lot of play still. Galio's nerfs got pushed to next patch, so he's safe for now. Samira's passive knocks up any immobilizing CC now changed to knocks up only knocked up enemies. I think that's huge. And then on top of that, the Q lifesteal went from 100% to 66%, and the R lifesteal went from 100 to 66%. So these are really big changes, and especially since Samira has a lot more options now with shield, bow, and BT, it makes sense to get rid of the healing. And honestly, her Q lifesteal with the sword would just chunk her for 500 extra health from nowhere. And although those are some good nerfs, the one that matters most is a knock up to only knocked up enemies. So now you definitely can't just run Samira Leona and win because there is no knockups there. I mean, you'd still probably be really impressive and strong, but now it's gonna force you to really bring Thresh's Flay and clicking it fast. Now this is Q and clicking it fast and looking for other picks. I personally like running Galio with Samira. I almost called it Camille, because I think the Galio Samira synergy is very, very strong. Both just want to go in and just have really strong high base damages, and Galio can secure a whole fight and peel a team off of it. So I personally like that a lot, and I'll probably stick to that, as Galio does have a knockup. It's a really interesting change, and I think it's going to be a good one for sure, because when it was on any mobilizing CC, any tank support was just so oppressive with Samira. Jin's Q bonus AD ratio went down from 45.75 to 35.65. Once again, they just really want to hammer Jin down. Although they're small nerfs, they all add up, so they're gonna be pretty big. Especially now that his Q's gonna do less damage, and his Q won't be able to proc as easily since Collective won't be killing the minions. So he's definitely losing safety, wave clear, and overall damage here. So Jin's gonna take a pretty big hit into this patch. They posted the Anivia and Pantheon top changes before, and I had talked about them in a previous video, but just a quick TLDR is they're just overloading their kits to give them more damage up front on their Q abilities with some more utility around. I would suggest looking it up in my previous video or looking at Mark Eater's tweets as well. Talon's W return damage went up by just a tad bit in the late game, as it says 45-125 to 45-145, so I can imagine at rank 4 and 5 got a little bit more damage. Don't think it's anything sizable or crazy. Warwick's passive on hit damage went from 842 to 1244, That's pretty big. Nice dueling, and I know it only seems like 4 or 2 depending on what rank you're looking at, but it's big because it has scalings on it too, both bonus AD and AP. And even if it does add up to only, let's say 8 or 9, he does auto lot, so out ep. But when he's under half health, he heals from his passive on hit damage. So that damage isn't just like an extra 8 damage a hit, it's an extra 8 healing on hit too, which will also triple when he gets even lower. So pretty big change. I think it's really good. Wukong jungle, now his E deals 150 damage, 150% damage to monsters. That's okay. That'd be pretty cool. If Wukong jungle becomes viable, I would love to play it. I like Wukong. Rengar W, extra healing from monster damage, 50 to 100%. W deals 65 to 130 bonus damage to monsters, scaling with champ level. I've been seeing that Rengars really are not liking the season so far. It's been really rough for them. And I have been seeing that Rengars are now using W and double W to clear their camps faster, just to apply the AoE burn from the jungle item. So really interesting way to take this. I definitely think Rengar is only bad because he's so bad at clearing and trying to get there. But once he does get there, he doesn't have a problem with the new items killing people. Echo jungle, passive damage to monsters 150 to 250, pretty big. Just faster clear for those people who lack the AoE clear now compared to the top tier junglers right now. And they give a lot to Lulu here. I was pretty surprised. So she got a new effect where her Q, hitting a target with both bolts, deals 25% increased damage. And the Q damage had went down and up a little bit. See, it says 80 to 100 and it says 70 to 10. So down at early ranks and up a little bit at higher ranks. But it says that the Q damage fall off after passing through a target is no longer, and now deals 70% to minions. So your Q is effectively doing 70% to minions, and if you hit both, you could get a little bit more damage out of it. The change is really interesting because essentially is nerfing the lane Lulus so they can't clear harder with it. But if it only does 70% damage to minions, I don't think it will be that bad for lane Lulu if she could hit both bolts. And then for support Lulu, Lulu's kind of, I don't want to say oppressive, but in some matchups she can be really aggressive and be really in your face. So Lulu with Mandate and this new change could be really, really powerful. Definitely something to look out for. Hylia's Q deals 50 to 100% damage now to monsters for the stones after the first hit. And her worked ground radius is much smaller now, so you could probably squeeze in another 5Q before you create more worked ground. I actually played Hylia jungle on stream last time because someone wanted me to, and I thought it was pretty good, but the clear was very, like, not slow, but just really weird. So if I get more rocks and do more damage, I could totally see it working out. The Twitch Q attack speed went from 3050 to 4060, and the W slow went from 2545 3050, and the R bonus damage went from 2040 to 2555. So pretty good buffs on almost all of his abilities here. And I'm glad they could buff him now since they nerfed the AP Twitch last patch, because AP Twitch was pretty strong. So they were really scared about buffing Twitch, but now that that's gone, they're free to make sure Twitch is in a playable state, which is really nice. And then Mordekaiser's Q isolation damage bonus went up from 2040 to 3050. That's good, give him more lane pressure. He was a champ that Money thought would be really good with the new Riftmaker item, but just couldn't succeed in the current top meta, so giving him a little bit of extra pressure won't hurt too much. And then Karthus' Q mana cost went from 2044 to 2040, so he saves 4 mana late game, which is pretty huge, it adds up. And the AP ratio went up by 5%. Also really big, especially in this age where you get a lot more AP a lot faster. Honestly, Karthus jungle, last I saw, was doing pretty good, so I can imagine it's pretty nice. Not a really big change here, but definitely a nice one and a welcomed one for Karthus players. The Q spear minimum damage went up on the base by 20 and 20% AP, which I thought was really big. And the spear max went up by a decent amount as well on the base, up to 60 on the max range, but same AP. So I thought that when I saw this change, I was thinking to myself exactly where these breakpoints are, since I'm not someone who plays Nidalee a lot, and I also don't know where it caps out the scaling on the range. But even at the minimum, so like right in their face, you're getting 20 base plus 20% more AP. This looks like a really, really good change for invading and just overall damage, so I can see this being really, really big. And they lowered the mana cost and the mana cost for your E as well too. Lee Sin's base armor went up by 3, his WCD went down by 2, and his E damage went up a bit on the base At rank 1 going up to 20, up to 20 on the last rank as well. So this is probably in fact that Lee Sin for once isn't that great of a jungler because he's starting to lose his duels. So I guess they want to give him a little bit more pressure back. Gragas' passive healing went from 6 to 8% on his max HP, and his W cooldown went from 6 to 5 seconds. Also just giving Gragas back some pressure. He's not doing so hot, so if he heal a little bit more, it'll probably be fine. The Ivern QCD has also went down. I was super surprised to see this because I think he's doing pretty well with the support items. Not only that, lowering the CDs when there's so much haste on support items is also crazy. So they lowered it from 1410 to 12.8, and his E shield AP ratio went from 80 to 90% AP ratio. And the CD had also went down, and the Daisy attack speed went up. That's pretty big stuff. The fact they get shield more often and less, I think is really, really big. So I think seeing this kind of change will only make Ivern become like a top tier jungle pick. Something that I would definitely be afraid of for sure. And then if we look at Nasus, the QCD went from 8 to 4 to 7.5 to 3.5, giving him the tad bit of pressure. They just don't want him to get out of control. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. I didn't think he needed a buff, but I guess they want to do a buff. I guess this is the right way. I thought they would have buffed his E, honestly. But very weird change. Very weird indeed. Then they wanted to buff Seraphine mid. HP level up from 80 to 90. And new the W shield increased by 50% for Seraphine only. Kind of a weird change. I mean, it makes sense. You don't always have people around you where you can just shield up. But I don't know. Seraphine's kind of a weird pick and doesn't really see much play, like good play, even in the right hands. So I hope we can help her. I can't really say much about it. She doesn't perform that well, and I don't think 10 HP per level and a slightly stronger shield would help her win lane. They gave Yasuo and Yone just a tad bit more attack speed by 1% per level, and this is good that they safe buffed like this and didn't want to buff them harder, even though they're doing really, really bad after the Rageblade nerfs. As we saw earlier, they did buff all the ADC items, so I think they're playing it safe so they can see what's going to happen, especially with the new IE. They might still just become really, really powerful now. And now Irelia's base AD went up by 2, and the QCD went down from 12.8 to 11.7. Small change, but probably a welcome one as well. And that about wraps up my rundown for this patch. Not all of these are final, but most likely they are. And we'll cover them again when the official patch notes come out in a much faster format. But that about does it for the patch 10.25. If you guys like this kind of content, please like it. It helps me out for the YouTube algorithm, motivates me, and lets me know. If you didn't like it, tell me why. Please leave feedback, and I would love to keep making content like this and explaining stuff to you guys. And sorry for those noises. That's my phone going off. I should have muted it before this. But scuff content creator. What can I say? But if you do like this content, please consider subscribing, as we do Riot news, updates, bonus content on lives pretty often. And you can check our very active socials down below too on Discord and Twitter, where we talk a lot about anything and everything and play games together. But until then, guys, stay safe out there, love you, and enjoy the rest of your day.